What a big weekend down in Cleveland for our Michigan State Spartans. But what was our main takeaway? Let's talk about it with our guy, Steven Brooks. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe. Comment below if you're watching on YouTube your biggest takeaway of the weekend, because that is where we will start with our near dear friend of the program, Steven Brooks of 24/7 Sports, who had, by the way, boots on the ground in Cleveland covering this for 24/7 Sports. He was in the locker room, got all sorts of great takeaways. But Steven, from a guy that watched one game on a very nice television at Buffalo Wild Wings and another in a family room that I almost burnt down in the first half out of stress, my biggest takeaway for the weekend, it's not like the defense, even though they played really good defense on Donovan Dent, but we already knew that about Michigan State. They're really good at that. We already knew that, hey, they're really good at coming from behind. That's the story of the season so far. So the main takeaway I had, Jeremy Fears, I think, played an incredibly mature weekend, and it did not start great. In the first half against Bryant, 3 turnovers, 2 points. Leading up to that game, we had our suspicions that the experience and the length of Bryant might bother him. But the way he bounced back swiftly and efficiently in the second half with 9 points, 3 assists, 0 turnovers, and a plus 20 all in one half, just sensational. New Mexico, just 5 points, but got 8 free throws, drawing fouls left and right. He had that one seismic block on the other end, just 1 turnover. Yeah. I think it was an incredibly mature weekend from Jeremy Fears. That's my biggest takeaway because, well, as a starting point guard at Michigan State, you're going to be under a microscope. Little wobbly to end the regular season, but ever since the Big Ten tournament has started, you've really got to like the growth that you've seen from Jeremy Fears. That's my biggest takeaway. Steven, what say you?
I like that. No, I like that a lot. And he didn't get teed up, which I think is growth and speaks to your maturity theme when, he's always dancing on that edge, which I like personally. And I think is needed for this team, but didn't jump over the edge this time, so that's notable there. You could feel like that he had a sense of the moment and like what they needed with some of those drives when there was some lag and some dull periods. He was like, all right, screw it. I'm just going to drive to the hole and figure this out. And a lot of times he got rewarded with a whistle. So, yeah, I do like that one. For me, I think the biggest thing is it's not new at all, but it's just like I look at this team and for a long time I felt like it's like the whack-a-mole arcade game, where you've got like 12 holes or whatever. And like you can cover a lot of them up, but then something's always popped up over here. And then it's over here. It's like, I got them all. And then no, there's not one right over there. Like, that's how I feel like defending or playing against this team is when you look at what Frankie Fiddler did in the second half yesterday, been your first double-digit scoring game in about over a month, actually. What Coen Carr did in the first game, they just always have an answer. And there were a couple matchups this weekend that looked a little dicey in both games, and they were able to figure it out, whether it was the Amsel kid or the Pinzone kid earlier, in the first game that was shooting from way downtown and everything. So I continue to think, again, it's not really a new takeaway, but to do it on this stage against unfamiliar teams, I think is notable. And it's really how they won those games to me this week in the biggest way was finding the right matchup, finding the answer to whatever was in front of them. And that's the whole strength and numbers thing. It's the depth thing. It's all the pieces that they have that they survive long enough to figure out the right combination, and then they find it, and then they're off and running. So I just think that's so dangerous that you can be the bigs really didn't have much of an impact on the weekend. I'm sure they will at some point in this run. Mm-hmm. And that's just, they're not a small team, quote unquote. They don't play small, but they can. They can do that, or they can just the way that they can morph into whatever the game needs because their personnel is so deep and diverse. To show up on the big stage absolutely was what I'd come away with.
Just thankful that games are 40 minutes long here as a Michigan State fan. They do have a lot of time to figure it out in the games, and, well, more times than not, certainly this season they have. Now the hard part is to figure out who the MVP was of the weekend, Steven, because there's no shortage of candidates. Frankie Fiddler, I mean, God, he had a plus 19 yesterday against New Mexico State. He played outstanding in the second half, like you pointed out. Jaden Akins, arguably the best game of his career, 8 points in each half against New Mexico. Hit that massive three-pointer to go up 3 with 7 minutes left. Carson Cooper, maybe not like a top-flight MVP candidate. 17 combined rebounds, though, over the 2 games. Jeremy Fears, like we just talked about, really mature in both of these games. Trey Holloman showed up in both games, too. But I got to go with Coen Carr. I mean, not to just fall in love with everything he did on Friday against a 15 seed, but Steven, you were there. You saw how dicey that game was in the first half. He kept Michigan State afloat in the first half, career high 18 points on the night. And even Sunday, yes, box score, he took a step back, but his impact was no shortage of just electric. 8 points, 6 rebounds, had that amazing diving out of bounds play to throw it off that Lobo player, which hope that guy didn't wake up with a basketball-sized bruise this morning, but I just think that he's the lightning rod that carried this team forward through the weekend. That's my MVP, but I'm not like saying it with conviction as if it's so like clear-cut. You're an idiot if you think anything else. So are you on the car train with me, or?
I am. I'm in the car with you. I'm passenger seat, shotgun. Let's drive it forward here. I think it's got to be. I mean, look, without Coen Carr, they might have been going home Friday night. I don't think that's completely unreasonable to say because of the timing of that late first half stretch that he came in and started to settle things down. Nothing was really going for him. And Bryant, I just want to say, was a really good team, played really hard, and I was super impressed with Phil Martelli Jr. and how he ran that game for them, whether it was the timeout usage or when and where he was mixing in zones, when and where he was throwing in some pressure and whatnot. I was really impressed by the job he did. I thought those guys played hard. Of course, they're pretty old. Coen Carr came in and sort of matched what they were. They were a bunch of 6'6" to 6'9" guys who were fairly athletic, and that's kind of his arena. So he filled in the gaps there. And like I said, that without Coen Carr on your team, I don't know, there's a decent chance you don't win that game. And then absolutely yesterday, the New Mexico game, he was still extremely impactful, just not as, maybe in the way that sticks with you the same way, but certainly was. And really, you look at both games in totality, we're talking about 3 dunks maybe. Not many. I don't know off the top of my head, but not many, and definitely not many memorable ones. So
disappointing, right?
You gotta love that he's expanding his game and he's continuing to show these different pieces and parts. Some of the drives that he had, some of the rebounds that he had, that first Michigan game out in Ann Arbor, I remember that's where it seemed like he was finally fulfilling that first, the prophecy of what Coen Carr could be as a rebounder and all these other things. And there was a little bit of that in this game. Some of the loose balls he got and playing defense on some of these wing guys that I was talking about, Amsel and some of those other guys on Bryant that were having good games on them. So it's Coen Carr for me. And like I said, it was very few dunks that led to it. It was everything else, and all that other stuff we're starting to see more and more, which. And there's some way, and this is another conversation, but I think for this team, you almost wish you had another full month before the postseason, just because of the growth runway for some of these guys, Coen, Jace, Jeremy Fears, as you said, give them more runway to ride this trajectory a little bit. It's almost a shame. I mean, of course they can keep playing, 4 more games at a max, but you almost wish they had 4 more weeks together to really see how far they could become the best version of themselves. But again, that's an aside, so I won't draw on that.
Coen Carr was also just a great lesson. Sometimes in basketball, a game with a lot of nuance, a lot of schematics, and sometimes it truly just is a game of Jimmy's and Joe's. And I was worried about Bryant's experience, their length. Obviously, Phil Martelli Jr., like you said, he really mixed up the defense as well. But sometimes when you have a guy that's also 6'6", but can also just jump a smooth 14 inches higher than anyone else on the other team, that leads to rebounds. That leads to dunks. That leads to taking a hold of the game there. So thank you, Coen Carr, for that very elementary lesson in basketball. I do want to talk just about the post-game, the vibe you were feeling in the locker room. And then also, look, hey, job's not finished. We still have maybe some concerns creeping in. We're going to temperature check those here in a hot segment. First, need to talk everyone's ears off about Nissan. Guys, the Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart from the top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs fought their way through the most rugged conference in college basketball to not only make the NCAA tournament, but knock off back-to-back national champion and Hall of Fame coaches en route to the Sweet 16. They accomplished all this without second leading scorer Boogie Fland for most of SEC play and without leading scorer and rebounder Adu Thero so far in the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Arkansas Razorbacks have done here. It's clear that our team of the week is out here ready to conquer the road, ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Let's drag it back out here. Stephen Brooks at 24/7 Sports. And as we get into like the concerns conversation, and I say concerns with like lowercase letters, guys, this team's obviously good. I'm not trying to hit a panic button. We're just trying to have an honest dialogue about the team here in a little bit. But obviously that was a really tough game for Jace Richardson yesterday. 1 of 10 from the field. Didn't score until 37 minutes into this game. I did find it delightful, soothing almost, that there was a video out there right after the game of him talking, basically not beating himself up. He was like, yeah, hey guys, sorry, I sucked. I'll be better next game. What was the vibe in the locker room after the game? Not just with Jace, but I guess if you want to parlay that into the whole team, what was it? All good? It has to be as you're going to the Sweet 16. Maybe that's a dumb question, but just like, how was the demeanor of Jace? And do you think that this is a thing that will just be a short-lived concern here?
Yeah, I think it was what you would expect. It probably even a little bit because of that. Like, I think there was an acknowledgement that, like, wow, our best player can have an awful night and we can still get to the Sweet 16. Like, look at us. You know, I mean, that's not nothing. You got to tip your cap to those guys. And you mentioned Jaden Akins stepped up for him. Trey Holloman had a big game for him. Frankie Fiddler, of course. So collectively, you know, they filled in the voids there. So yeah, and Jace, I mean, Jace does everything at the level and maturity of like a 28-year-old. So like it doesn't, you know, and we have some of those basically these days because of COVID, but he's whatever he is, 19, 20. He's probably not 20, I would think, but I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's so much more mature beyond his years, and it reflects in his play, I think, as well. But yeah, he's been great to deal with from our end, and yeah, he handled it like a pro, like an NBA veteran. You know, he just took ownership of it, thanked his teammates for picking him up, and just said, you know, he admitted it was frustrating. He didn't hide from anything. He just said, hey, it was a rough night. It was what it was. I took those shots. You know, I think Izzo said he missed shots he takes in his sleep, and he kind of echoed that in similar words. I don't want to botch his quote or anything, but you know, he said some of that same stuff. So I think he was fine. I think it was, you know, much like they kind of took some hard lessons in that Wisconsin game in the Big Ten tournament. Like that was kind of the last opportunity to use a mulligan as a team. I feel like Jace kind of got that out of the way in the last possible situation, because if he does that again, they're done. You know, that was the last game that he can really afford to have that type of stinker. And I don't think he will again, quite honestly. I think he'll learn from this. I think next game, you better watch out for him, because I really think he's so smart. He's so efficient. And he learned that, like, he stayed in it mentally, and he learned that he can do other things. He made a couple big passes late. He was still defending, you know, and then he just mentally he stayed in it to the point where he can catch that miss from Frankie Fiddler, put it back for his only field goal, and that basically ended the game there, you know. So, I don't think you worry about him at all from like a mental standpoint. If anything, you worry about him from a physical standpoint. That guy has suffered a lot of little dings and bumps and bruises this year. Nothing serious, obviously. I mean, he did miss the one game out in Maui, but no like extended time. But I do worry about the accumulation of a lot of little knocks on him, because almost every game he gets hit to the floor pretty hard and like takes just a split second to gather himself. So, you know, the freshman wall has not been a thing for him. Like I said, he's been very mature and composed and all of that. It's not going to be a mental load on him. I think it's going to be a physical fatigue thing that you got to worry about, you know, keeping him right for ideally 4 games if you're Michigan State. So in terms of concerns, it's, to me, the number one thing is the free throw shooting that suddenly looks like the stock market. You know, like it's a steep drop off from where they were. And I wasn't concerned all year. We're not really talking about the three-point shooting anymore. I thought that would come around. That kind of has, and whatever. Defensively, they've waned in a way that I didn't think that they would, and I don't know exactly what that's about. These have been a couple tough matchups personnel-wise, like
Sure.
I said, and unfamiliar teams and whatnot. So, and they've tightened up when they matter. So they've shown that's still there, because that was the biggest thing to me through the end of the regular season. That 7-0, they were just suffocating people defensively, overwhelmingly more than anything else that stood out to me in that stretch. So that has to be there. But for me, it's the free throw shooting, and I think I think now you worry that it's become a thing, because they know it's something that you cannot get away with this time of year, and we're seeing their good free throw shooters miss them. And I wonder if it's becoming a self-fulfilling thing almost, that they're thinking about it too much. And Izzo always says, he's going to address it head on, and he doesn't care about pressure. He wants to deal with the white elephant in the room, or his words.
Yep. Right.
And whatever, like, that's his style. And I'm not even saying that that's wrong or anything, but I just think, I thought yesterday you could see them sort of looking at it and thinking about it and sort of struggling with it, like, in real time. So that is something that could absolutely bite this team if they don't tighten that back up. So I think that's my big one as you look into the second weekend.
If only someone here had some numbers to kind of, just paint a picture of the free throw shooting right now, because this has been. Steve, get the legal pad and pen out, Steven. This is some research done over here. Look, it's been a season-long conversation with just how strange it's been that Michigan State was like an elite free throw shooting team, but one of the worst, like, hot dog water teams that shoot the three-pointer, because usually those two numbers are somewhat close more times than not. If you're a good shooting team, you're going to get it done here. So up here was the free throw. That's the top floor of the building, right? And then down here, we were in the basement. Okay, in the last 9 games, hey, life's good, okay? Actually, in the last 9 games, Steven, from three-point land, your Michigan State Spartans out there, 35.8% from three. That's not elite, but that is certainly above average, and that's just where Michigan State has to be. With everything else they can do at an elite level, just be decent from three-point shooting. That's great. Okay, so we're moving on up in this elevator. And, oh, God, over here in the Tower of Terror, in the 9 games, the same span that we got here, this team is shooting 69.3% in the last 9 games. Again, like, it's not the season-long sample size, but I think 9 games is certainly big enough of a sample size. If we can use 9 games to talk about, hey, how decent three-point shooting has been, we could also be honest with ourselves and look at the 9-game sample size for free throw shooting. It's actually been 68.6% in the 4 postseason games alone, but still, the numbers are certainly starting to match each other. But that's also coming at the expense of the free throw moving down here, which stop that. Stop that right now, Michigan State. Make your free throws. Hey, Jeremy Fears, please never go 0 for 2 in the first half when you guys are down early ever again, please. Yeah, so that is a big concern. There is another concern I want to bounce off you to. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros for looking for that extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it is your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's over at supplyhouse.com. Especially, this is also matchup dependent, too, with Ole Miss. They're not the longest team. It's going to be more of a small ball look for the running Rebels down there. Hasn't been the greatest start to games for Michigan State, no matter what the other team's personnel is. Do you drop it down to a small ball lineup right off the bat? Is it Kohler at the 5, Carr at the 4, who I think you're going to need Carr at the 4? Because Ole Miss, well, they got a stretch forward that could take guys off the bounce. Carr's going to be your best defender for that situation. So do you keep the same starting 3 guards, and then Carr at the 4, Kohler at the 5, or do you do the whole same, hey, 2 minutes for Jamon Sapala, and we'll just see how that goes and see if we can keep within 5 points to start the game? I don't know, because we had this conversation yesterday. It's like they've won 10 of 11. Do you screw up what hasn't been broken? But actually, yeah, maybe now at this point, I think I do. Do you?
I think you stay status quo because, like you said, it's at the most it's like 2:08. That Shimon will be in there before. They have demonstrated a quick trigger with the lineup when it doesn't work. If that wasn't the case, then I would probably say yeah. But I just think that this whole thing, like everyone's bought in. It's what they've done. Like the rotation is I don't think you want to mess with things right now.
Okay.
I don't think it's the time to experiment, and because that they've made moves early enough that's normal to them. I just don't think you want to mess with any type of routine or consistency that they have right now. Yeah, they haven't gotten off to great starts in these 2 games. The opponents I think have just played well though. Also, especially I thought Bryant early. I was like, man, Michigan State's not playing bad. They're just playing really good.
Yeah.
So there's some of that, and the other thing I think to remember. And I know we're deep into this season, but like this is new for all these guys, especially, of course, it's new being a high seed and having the pressure of a team trying to take you home or send you home, I guess. Maybe not take you home, maybe that's not the right word. But so there's that. But like all these guys, none of these guys have been a part of that. Jaden Akins was in a Sweet 16, but he was a B-list sidekick type of guy on that team, and now he's supposed to be your frontline guy. So just nobody's really been a part of this at this level. It's all new to them in terms of being in these leading roles and everything. So I just think you stick with what got you here. The buy-in and the mental piece of it, the whole strength and numbers thing, like it's real because they believe it and they embrace it. So I just think you don't mess with that. Already, Xavier Booker didn't play in the first half, this weekend. So that was let's see, did he play at all against New Mexico? I don't think he did, right?
No, I don't think he did.
Yeah. No, nothing against New Mexico, and then didn't play his usual first half against Bryant. Came in way late once that one was stretched out. But so that was already one adjustment. Frankie Fiddler comes in earlier and absorbed some of those minutes and did a good job. Him and Coen Carr, being that tandem small ball 4-man was really good for them. But that was already one adjustment, so I don't know. It was a minor one, and I think it's easy enough. But I just don't. To me, I wouldn't want to tweak anything, especially because there's some games I think that have surprisingly been Zapawa positive matchups that you maybe didn't necessarily think. There's been a couple games where you're like, oh, okay, he starts off pretty strong and gives them a little something, and offensive rebound here, 4 quick points, 4 the first media timeout, something like that. So yeah, I think you just let it ride, and like I said, they haven't been scared or afraid to make changes quickly if they need to anyway. So I think you just keep it going.
The Zapawa thing has been a very just thrilling roller coaster ride because yesterday he couldn't have started the game off any worse. Not great on defense, and then called for 5 seconds after he held onto the ball for roughly 13 seconds. They really gave him a long leash there. But then he comes back in the first half when Carson Cooper gets in foul trouble. I'm like, oh, my God, here we go again. And then he actually showed up pretty well on defense, I thought. So you never know what you're going to get out of whatever stint from him, but that's just what makes March basketball more exciting, I suppose. Just
the bigs and their foul trouble is also, when you talk about late season things that have popped up, like the free throw shooting, it's not the biggest thing, but if you're hunting for something to worry about, I mean, they got to be better in that regard because, they only have the 3 really. And, certain days, one of them, tends to be a good matchup. Usually it hasn't really been the case, I guess, so far, but you just don't want to play with that is what I'm really saying. So they both got to be smarter there. Like Kohler thinking about that Wisconsin game and how he was, completely taken out of that first half. Like that's tough because you're not getting the interior in and out, looks from him, or obviously the rebounding he brings. Just those guys got to be smart. They got to be available.
Let's switch it up to football recruiting here at the very end. I know we're in the middle of March Madness, a great run for Michigan State, but yes, let's head to the gridiron here because there have been some stories popping up here and there around the recruiting trail, whether it's the 2026 cycle, the 2027 cycle, just to name 2. Really quick, Steven. Gregory Patrick, in-state, top 200 offensive lineman, legacy product for your Michigan State Spartans. He's visited twice already this month. He's going to go on an official visit this upcoming June. Of course, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State still in the fold there for Gregory Patrick's services. But also over the weekend, again, out of the state of Michigan, top 30 kid. Not in the state of Michigan, not just for his position, no, nationally top 30 kid, wide receiver Dakota Guerrant, if I'm saying that right. He visits Michigan State too. And I know we're 2 years ahead of time, again, a 2027 kid, but wow, cool. I like seeing that picture. What should get most of my attention right now? Is it the Patrick? Is it this top flight receiver coming in? Or is there something that's more interesting to you right now in the world of Michigan State football recruiting, Stephen?
I think, I guess you could sort of combine them and just say, like, they're shooting at, at a higher caliber of player in regard with those guys. Now they are both in-state guys, and they're going to be, they're going to be intentional in the state. So, like, if Dakota Guerrant was from Philly or something, would he be making it to campus? Like, I don't know, but still,
sure he would.
Whatever. You're having those conversations, you're getting them around and everything, and so that's important. In Patrick's case, he's been a guy that going back to last staff's been a major priority. As you said, his dad played here. I think like MSU, it's not a shoe-in for Michigan State by any means, but I also kind of feel like it's going to be hard for them to screw up. Not impossible by any means. It's definitely possible, but and he's listening to those other places, including Michigan, Notre Dame, like you said, Penn State's in there. Like, he is listening. Michigan State has to do a good job, but I don't think they have to be flawless necessarily. I guess that's probably really the way I'm putting it. And he would be a big pickup. We all know where the offensive line's been, the time invested that they put into this guy. So, my read is he's absolutely giving everybody a shot, but I kind of sense that, to me, and this is just me, this is just my gut feel, but I think that MSU kind of will always sort of be an inch forward, and it's on MSU to not give up that ground, I guess. And, of course, another school could make up that ground, but it's hard for me to see. I feel like he kind of deep down, and I don't know him super well, but I get a sense that he kind of wants to be here, but it's going to be a long process. He's going to take his visits and do his due diligence, and we'll see what changes after that, and what sort of messages people can sell on him. But I think I could see that ended up in a good place for MSU, and Guerrant, like you said, is 2 years away. So, but still, is these in-state kids. I mean, that's like, we can say it like I just said it, but you don't have Nick Marsh probably either if he's from Chicago, and whatever, you got him, and he's here, and he's a one of the faces of your program. So it's not like you can't win these battles. You have the benefit of being close, so you're going to be able to get them up more than anybody you would hope. You're going to be starting earlier than most people you would hope. So I know, he's going to be a big time target, though. That's probably going to be taking visits coast to coast. People like him as a DB too, at a high level. Now he's probably more of a receiver at the end of the day, but he's a really good DB as well. I know Ohio State has been on him for quite a bit, and that's a big offer for kids around here, So, that's just kind of my takeaway, is that they're being very active in getting kids up. Very intentional, I think, with that radius, and in some ways, again, Patrick was already on the radar, so it's not necessarily new, but just you still want to see them involved with some higher stakes battles, in the conversation with some higher ranked kids, because I think that was the takeaway from the first full high school cycle, was that, like, good, solid, decent, but like can't have too many more classes like that probably. And within it, there's individuals that are intriguing or whatever. Yeah. But on the whole, the talent level of the roster has to rise, and the recruiting class has to reflect that.
So, like, I'm not trying to, to put all my emotion and my mental well-being in, the choice of a high school kid. And
you'd never do that. No, that's
never.
not me.
Well, see, this is why we're friends. You know me very well, Steve, and you know that I would never do such a thing.
Right.
And look, Michigan State, they've seen some legacy kids not go to Michigan State, especially recently. And I think, that hasn't really bothered me. It's like, okay, well, coaching change, this, and that. There's all sorts of reasonable excuses, I like to call them, why they didn't land some of these kids. I think this one, though, the Gregory Patrick, would get the D word. This would be a disappointment. Should Michigan State not land him? Is that fair? Am I allowed to be a little peeved if they don't land this one?
Oh yeah, disappointment. That's not even. I don't think that's a strong word or something like.
Okay.
If you said like,
let's go.
Okay, good. Be fired or something, or like Jim Mahalchik's like, he's washed up, he's got to go. Like
I'll do that too. That's fine.
Like but disappointment, of course. Yeah, you should be disappointed because they've invested, like I said, a lot of time in him. They have a natural advantage with him. It's. Like I said, it is competitive. It's not in the bag, but I do feel like it's Michigan State's race to lose, if those all things all put together make any sense at all. But they do have to continue to push and do the right things, because other schools are recruiting him well. I mean, I know he has legitimate interest, especially Michigan and Notre Dame. Very, very legitimate interest in them. So it's not a shoe-in. They should not treat it that way. And I don't think they are either, for the record. By all accounts, they are not. So, it's going to be a fun one to watch. I think. I guess maybe I don't want anybody losing their marbles over it. But, I mean, I think he'd be a really good fit for this system too. They already do some of the same things at his high school in terms of run schemes and whatnot. He's a very athletic tackle, which I think is what you're going to want, what you're going to see more of coming in here to run the system that they have. So, it'd be a great pickup in a lot of ways. And I know Cade Kaufman, the quarterback in the class, is in his ear, another in-state guy. Mm-hmm. So, that always helps. And that's one of the benefits of getting your quarterback early is that he can sort of be your point man in that sense. So if you could have Patrick and him early on, I think that'd be a early-ish, because I don't see anything moving with Gregory until after his summer officials. But still, if you could have him hypothetically for the back half of the cycle, post-summer, I think that'd be a really good spot to be in, and would make some waves in the state.
No doubt. Well, hey, Stephen, can't thank you enough for your time, your insight, and guys, thanks a lot for listening. If you're looking for hockey talk, guys, that's going to come on tomorrow's show. We're going to rope in Jeremy Dewar of Spartans Illustrated, of course, talk about your Big Ten tournament champs ahead of the NCAA tournament coming up this weekend. And also just got to make a quick note, women's basketball, they did lose in the round of 32. If you missed that game, screwed by the refs. That's where I'll leave that. That's a joke. I hope you can see my sarcasm there. But still a solid season for Robin Freilich, the women's program, still trending upwards over there in East Lansing. But guys, we will be back right here, Locked on Spartans. We do this 5 days a week. Take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go Green.